So like many nerds, I stayed up late and watched the Superman teaser as soon as it aired online. Now, you can only learn so much from a teaser trailer. They're only meant to give you the briefest glimpse of what the movie will be like. You don't get a sense for the plot or characters in the same way you do with a full trailer. But I think we've gotten enough to start to understand what James Gunn's DCU will look like going forwards. Sure, we've seen a bit of the universe from Creature Commandos, but I don't really count that. Creature Commandos was in production before Gunn fully took over. It's still tied to the previous DCEU a bit, even if they're advertising it otherwise. Superman will be our first big DC adaptation without any connection to the previous regime at Warner Brothers who were driving everything into the ground. So now we have the real question. Will Gunn continue driving everything into the ground? Or will he understand what DC should be and give us something that fans and casual audiences will enjoy and recognize as Superman? After watching the trailer, I think I can finally answer that with a very confident maybe? There were a lot of elements in the trailer that gave me hope for Superman in the DCU, but there were also elements that had me a little worried. Let's start where the trailer starts us off. Superman is beaten to hell and he calls Krypto over to help him up. I think they started here to tell audiences a couple things that get right to the root of what this movie's gonna be. The first is there are a lot of people who think Superman is boring because he's too powerful and nothing can challenge him. This is one of those very stupid takes from people who don't know anything about the character or what the hell they're talking about, like people who say, Batman should just kill the Joker. Superman may be powerful, but he lives in a world with a million things even more powerful than he is. This is to let those viewers know right off the bat that this won't be a dull movie about a guy standing there and getting shot at while nothing happens until some asshole tosses some kryptonite at him. This Superman is gonna fight, and he's gonna get beat to shit. And even after he falls, he's gonna get back up and fight again. Now, I have no idea what the actual context for this scene is. It could be something incredibly stupid or absolutely boring as hell. But I believe that's what the trailer is trying to tell us. The other main thing this scene was chosen for, I think, is that it obviously features Krypto in all his glory. A little pitch-white dog in a red cape with superpowers. The second Gunn took over a Superman movie, I knew we were gonna get Krypto with what an animal lover he is. And I'm glad to see that he'll likely be a pretty big part of the movie instead of just a glorified cameo. There are a lot of elements of Superman's lore that movies just do not touch for some reason. Whether they think they're too silly or unrealistic, I don't fucking know. Most of the people in Hollywood are stupid, so I can't understand their thinking. Things like Krypto, the Legion of Superheroes, or 50 other shades of kryptonite, these are all elements that have been in his lore for a very, very long time and add so much to what people love about the character in his world. One of my main hopes from Gunn making this is that he wouldn't shy away from those elements. Superman's one of the biggest, craziest characters of all time, and those relatively grounded, realistic worlds they've been putting him in are just dull. Yeah, you get the Phantom Zone, Supergirl, Kryptonians, or a big-ass troll thing they call Doomsday. But where's Mr. Mxyzptlk, Superman robots, or even something as simple as fucking Brainiac or Bizarro? Superman is such a fun character, and it always feels like they're tying both hands behind his back in Hollywood and just presenting him as a bulletproof guy who can fly but is vulnerable to kryptonite. The TV shows have been adding in these bizarre elements for years, so I have no clue why Hollywood wants him to just do the same thing he's been doing since the fucking 70s, over and over again. By starting with Krypto straight from the beginning of the trailer, we're told that this is not going to be what a lot of people expect a Superman movie to be. Let's take a look at the costume. And I'm going to admit, when it comes to Superman's costume, I'm a purist. He's had a distinct look since before my parents were born. Why change it? I was not sold on the design in the first picture we got. It reminded me too much of his New 52 look, which I fucking hate. But even I have to say in the trailer, I like the costume better than I thought I would. Seeing him within the actual scenes of the movie, the collar doesn't look as high as it did in the pictures, and the material doesn't look as much like a shitty cheap little cosplay as I thought it did before. It's still different than I'd do. I wouldn't have used the Kingdom Come style logo, and I wouldn't want the outfit to be quite that baggy. But these are just nitpicks. He has the fucking trunks and the yellow S on his cape, so that's all good. And more importantly, maybe the general public wants something a little different. Something a bit visually distinct, maybe smart, to set this apart from the DCEU, which, besides the lack of trunks and weird stupid lines everywhere, was more or less what people see a Superman looking like in their heads. And I also hated the CW version of the costume immensely and thought it was absolutely terrible. And that's one of the best portrayals of the character in modern times. So I can't judge too hard based on costumes because in the end it doesn't actually matter as much as I'd like it to. Now, the trailer didn't give us much about Clark's personalities, but it did give us a little. We can see he has a positive relationship with people around him like Pa Kent, Lois, and even Krypto. This is very different from the DCEU version, who was quite distant from humanity. Yeah, he was in a relationship with Lois, but there was a distance in his character that just couldn't be bridged. He was an alien, a living god. His father had raised him to always be scared of revealing himself to the world, and it shows in his character. They tried fixing that in Justice League, and it just came off as awkward. In the trailer, Superman seems to be grappling with a lot, but he doesn't seem mopey or hopeless like he did in Batman v Superman, or overly super frenzy like he did in Justice League. Now, there's not a lot we can tell about him now, but he didn't snap anyone's neck yet, so that's always a plus. As far as the world, the color palette seems a lot different than I expected. A lot more subdued and muted. Much different from Gunn's dark but vibrant colors in Guardians. But it does help it stand apart from the overly saturated visual vomit the recent MCU has been becoming known as, so it may have been purposeful. Superman and Krypto's colors are solid and bright, so it could be to make the heroes stand out more. Not enough scenes to tell as of yet. And thank fucking God we have a giant monster in this movie. So far, the Supermen we've had have all existed in worlds where the threats are some bank robbers, or maybe a tall guy with an axe. We now know that this is a world where a giant monster will just roam into Metropolis like in the Powerpuff Girls. I've been so sick of the lack of ambition for the threats Superman has to face on film. And in all superhero movies, really. These are worlds with superheroes left and right, and all they have to do is fight the occasional threat every few years. This tells me we're in a world where crazy shit happens all the time, and that's why there are so many superheroes to keep people safe from them. For the other characters, Lois looks like Lois. Giving Lois Lane red hair is a fucking crime, by the way. The little elements of her character feel like what her character should be, though at this point it's way too early to tell. Lex Luthor is bald, has a LexCorp, and seems like an asshole. Hopefully we'll finally get a Luthor who acts like Luthor, and not some kind of real estate psychopath or some weird tech moron. The Daily Planet looks like it should. Visually, a lot of elements in the world just kind of look like you'd expect them to, which isn't that exciting, but is apparently an amazing feat in the modern age of adaptations. We also get a very short glimpse of Guy Gardner, Hawkgirl, and Mr. Terrific. I was worried about Gardner from the casting, but he actually looked pretty okay to me in the trailer. It looks like they're going for the classic, ugly, angry, chip-on-the-shoulder version of the character. I think that could be a good foil for Superman. With Hal Jordan already casted, I can't help but hope to see the two Lanterns on screen someday, since they're such opposites of each other, but I'm getting ahead of myself again. For all I know, they're both going to die in their projects. I actually think Mr. Terrific looks pretty damn good. We kinda got a version of him in Arrow, but the character was so different from the comics that I barely consider him to be Mr. Terrific in that show. This version only had 2 seconds, but he's got a T on his face, he's doing some super science stuff, and he looks all serious. So, no complaints here. With Hawkgirl, we get about a second of her flying forwards, and I have to say her costume doesn't really look very good. It's pretty much the same costume as Terrific and Gardner, but they both wear that weird jacket shit in the comics. Hawkgirl's comic costumes have almost always been pretty kick-ass, so seeing her dressed like this is a bit disappointing. But her helmet looked cool, and that's what really matters. We'll have to see more to judge. So, here's my overall take as a comic fan worried about how James Gunn will adapt the DC Universe now that he's in charge. Nothing here gives me reason to be overly concerned. The trailer gives you all the elements you'd want out of Superman. He saves people, he's a disheveled nobody at the Daily Planet, he has a relationship with Lois Lane, Lex Luthor seems to dislike him. From what I've seen, any problems I have are mostly nitpicks that just do not matter, like Krypto being scruffier than I'd like, or Guy Gardner's hair not being bright enough. Until we get more characterizations or plot details, we can only speculate, and most people are probably going to see in the trailer whatever their personal expectations already were. If you were hyped for it, you'll probably see reasons to get even more hyped. If you thought it'll suck, you'll probably see plenty of reasons why it'll suck. But somebody like me, who's more middle of the road in my expectations, but is worried for how this movie is going to be, you're likely not going to see anything that alleviates your worry, or anything that really confirms it. But here's what I can say after watching the trailer. My hope for Superman has not been snuffed out. And that's actually a lot more than can be said about a lot of the shit coming out recently. So, I mean, that's good. We'll see in July. Unless, of course, they decide to go the MCU route and delay the movie by years to spend millions more on reshoots. What do y'all think? Does this look like it'll actually be a Superman movie? Or is this gonna be an original character Gunn makes who they just slap the name Superman on and call it a day? Do the people around you seem hyped for this movie or trailer? Is anyone talking about it? Or is it just another movie that'll come and go and everyone will ignore? Let me know below. I really enjoy seeing your takes on this kind of stuff. If you like this video and agree, give me a like and a follow, and I'll be in your feed to talk about the next hot pop culture topic soon. If you dislike this video and completely disagree, give me a like too, and I'll show up in your feed to piss you off with my next totally stupid and idiotic take that'll distract you from how shitty the real world is. Either way, I'll see you then. And Merry Christmas, you filthy animals.